Touch this. What about now? Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Do me a solid, Scotty. Let me know if you can hear me now. I think it's working now. No sound LinkedIn. Testing, testing. Did we fix it? Here's the microphone. What about this? Testing 1 2 3. Yes, yes. Hey, we're back. Well, my intro has gone to crap. So that's fun. I appreciate you, gentlemen, for letting me know about it. All right, starting from the top, welcome to the MSP water cooler. And if this is your first time here, let me just share a little bit about what's going on, what you can expect out of today. So the MSP water cooler is, if you're an IT services business owner, if you are responsible for revenue or growth in your MSP in any capacity. So you might be a sales rep, you might be in revenue operations, marketing, growth, customer success. These are your people. This is your place. All right. I'm seeing some feedback. The mic button was the fix. Good, good. Yeah. I was working downtown on site with a client this morning, and my workstation here in my office wasn't fully turned on. I set everything up when like 30 minutes ago. So that's the joys of rolling with stuff. But anyways, here's how it works. We want to hear from you. And there's two ways you can hear from me. Number one, you can drop a comment on YouTube or LinkedIn with your sales, growth, marketing, business development related scenario or question, and we'll bring it up on screen. We'll discuss it. Normally, we have a co-host here. Normally, we have a special guest here. And a little bit on that in a second. 2026, you're going to see some new and cool stuff coming from the MSP water cooler. But today, you get me. But maybe not just me, because that brings me to option number two. In the studio chat, or on LinkedIn, there's a link to join me backstage. So if you're watching right now and you can turn your camera on and your microphone on and you're feeling brave, you can literally join me backstage in StreamYard. We'll pull you up on screen. We'll give you about a minute and a half of time. And what I want from you is a sales or business development, growth, marketing situation that you dealt with in 2025. And what worked, what didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So without further ado, lay it on me, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching this live on LinkedIn or YouTube, or if you happen to be watching the recording back later. Few more thoughts before we kind of super jump in. You can start throwing your questions in the chat or jumping on screen right now. But while we do that, if you've been to an OG MSP water cooler, we normally have our co-host Robert Gillette, and we love Robert, and Robert loves us. Robert is stepping away, at least for the time being, for perhaps the next few months, from the MSP water cooler due to bandwidth issues. It's not a small commitment to give an hour or more almost every week to something like this. So we're very grateful for the time Robert Gillette has given us in the past. We look forward to having him as a guest again in the future. I'm sure we will. And in the process, in the meantime, we're actually working on getting our new co-host ramped up, and that will be someone that we announced, somebody that I believe you all know and love in 2026. Additionally, special guests. So if you're interested in ever being featured in the MSP water cooler as a subject matter expert, sales, marketing, business development, growth for MSPs and IT businesses, let me know, because we're looking for special guests. Maybe you could be featured on a future episode. All right, now here's my big question while we wait. If we don't get any responses or comments in the chat, no big deal. I would prefer that. So if you're an IT business owner and you're watching, we absolutely covet your insights and thoughts here and what works for you. But I have a question for you guys. Okay, you ready? Here's the big question. We got, 2 weeks before 2026. My first question, what was the goal for 2025? What was it that you were looking for, hoping to achieve and accomplish this year? That's the first question. The second question, how did it go? Did you get there? Did you have a goal at the beginning of the year of how many new customers, how much new revenue, how many more endpoints perhaps? What was the goal and did you hit it? If you did hit it, we absolutely want to celebrate your wins with you. We absolutely want to pat you on the back and cheer you on, pop the champagne, and celebrate the success you experienced in 2025. And I know personally, some of my partners in my world have had a good year, but I know others who it's been a bit of a slog. 2025 was a grind in more ways than one. And so often it feels like revenue, especially for the smaller to mid-size MSPs, becomes backseat to operations. Growth becomes secondary to customer service. And that's got to be frustrating as a business owner or anyone responsible for revenue in the business. Has that been your experience this year? Please let me know in the comments or the chat. And if you're brave and you want to join me on screen, would love to hear from you. So the first question is, what was the goal? The second question is, did you hit it? And if you didn't, what things did you try? What things did you invest in? And how did you spend your time in 2025? So I want to hear from you while we're waiting. And it might just be me today. It might just be me today, and that's okay. Let me tell you a little bit about what my goals were and a little bit about what we spend time on. So, for those of you who know, findmyitpartner.com has been my passion project for a good while. And the vision for it is a global network of trusted service providers, qualified MSPs who are just absolute badasses at what they do. And creating an economy of trust where the end user, the customer, no longer has to go to people in their network and say, hey, who do you recommend? But rather be the central spot for the marketplace to come find service providers. I'm not talking about like the Capteras and G2s and those types of platforms that exist for enterprise software and SaaS, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think anything like that super duper exists for service providers, managed IT providers, IT, cybersecurity, compliance, and AI. That was the big goal and still is, still is. The goal from the revenue standpoint was to grow our partner base significantly. Specifically, the goal was to get to 50 partners by the end of 2025. We're at 40, so we're not going to hit that goal. Another goal was to grow the number of matches that we make. And we average about one match per month, and that's not enough. We absolutely are working hard for 2026 on how we're going to improve that rate and deliver more and better opportunities to our partners. But while we're waiting for people to drop in the chat what's working for them in 2026 and what's not, et cetera, um, here's some observations I made in 2025. All right. This is specific to our business, right? Number one, this is not necessarily new. Yeah. I see you, Luis. Yes. Close. We were close. I mean, I guess we could sign 10 partners in 2 weeks, but Christmas is next week. Um, but anyways, observations. Data is everything. Who you're going after, who you're targeting, needs to be extremely well defined. So I've been on countless calls in 2025 where I've been talking with MSPs and IT business owners about who their customer is. And so often what I'm hearing is not a satisfactory response. We work with small businesses in the greater Albuquerque area, or we work with even, professional services businesses in the Southeast. We work with whatever. And it's not a fine tuned ideal customer. So that's the biggest problem initially is you don't know who you're trying to serve, who you're trying to target. You're casting way too broad a net. The second observation that I have, so there's the who, is then the data itself. So if you already have a broad ideal customer or an undefined ideal customer, I should say, you're going to struggle significantly to do this next part, which is build data sets of prospects and target accounts that are valid and relevant. So let's assume that you do master the first part and you build an ideal customer profile that is meaningful. The next thing is you got to build a list of target accounts, prospect accounts. And if you're using the majority of tools out there that promise to build you lists of prospects, there's ways to do it and use those tools that can be meaningful. But if you're just pulling down a list of veterinarian offices from Zoom Info and assuming that these are all buyers of yours and that the data is going to be amazing, you're misguided and you're going to have to learn some hard lessons. And I can tell you, because I've learned some of those myself. Nathan, you're absolutely right. Talk to your customer. In fact, I'll spend a minute here. You do got to talk to your customer. If you don't know where to begin when it comes to nailing down your ideal customer, most of the MSPs that I speak to, they've been around a little bit already. They've got typically 25 to 75 SMB accounts, maybe 700 to 1,500 endpoints under management. Most of the folks I talk to are somewhere between their first million in revenue on the low end and as high as maybe 7 million in revenue, or maybe a little greater. But most of them are somewhere between that, 2 and 4 million in annual revenue mark. Most of the demos and discovery calls and meetings I've had in 2025 were with organizations like that. And I'll have this conversation with them about who is your ideal customer. And when I get that unsatisfactory response, which it feels like inevitably I do, my first recommendation is let's do a little exercise. Next time we meet, I want you to bring a CSV file, and I want there to be 5 rows in that CSV file. And on each row should be the URL of one of your favorite customers. And what I mean by favorite customer is if somehow I were able to find you 10 more of those identical customers in 2026, the prospect of that in your mind gives you goosebumps, right? That's what I mean by favorite. So build me a list of those 5, all right? And then you and I are going to get on a call together. You're going to share your screen, and one by one, you're going to pull up the URL of that customer, like their website. And I want you to tell me the story of that customer. Where did they come from? How did you get connected? What is it that you like about them? So I did this with a partner a couple of years ago, this exact exercise. The first one that popped up was a nonprofit. And the guy was saying to me, he's like, we love these people. They're some of our favorite people to work with. And we have a personal relationship with the president and the executive leadership. And, they're a joy to do business with. He said, well, do you make money on them? It's like, oh, no, absolutely not. They're not profitable at all. In fact, they're kind of a loss leader for us. And I said, all right. So I understand that they're a valuable client in the fact that you have a personal connection to them. But when we're talking about building an ideal customer profile, we can't necessarily go after these. Okay, good to know. So not that first one. The second one, there was an exclusivity contract involved in the MSA. I'm not fully sure how that came about, but it was a very profitable account that had multi-regions, multiple locations, but the agreement they laid down was that they were not allowed to do IT with any of their competitors. So I was like, okay, well, that makes that pretty obvious that legally, if so long as you're working with these guys, you can't pursue anyone else kind of in this market segment. So not this one. And then he shows me the third one. And the last 3 of those 5 were all manufacturing. And 2 of the 3 had high compliance requirements. And one of them, what he particularly spent some time on, saying, we love these guys. Wow, we're very profitable with them because we have to do all this extra stuff from a compliance standpoint, and we make good money, and they listen to us. So they're not afraid to pay their bills. They aren't scared of what we charge. They trust us with what we do and our expertise and our competency. And so, all right. So manufacturing, high compliance. And we were able to dial in on the ideal customer going through this exercise. Incredibly valuable exercise. Well, you want to know what my recommendation for part two of that exercise is. Now that you've got a more laser focus on who you like and who you want, you're absolutely right. Just like Nathan says, you should go talk to them. So sit down with those three initially, and really anyone else that's in your customer base right now. And you need to reverse engineer the sales process. Where did they come from? Who referred you in? Because it's very likely someone referred you into the account, right? Um, and who is the stakeholder and the champion that you had to win over in the sales process? Who is the one who signed the check? And what were the compelling reasons for the conversation, right? The thing that brought them to the table. And then you need to suss out, is this universally true of everyone in this industry, everyone in this market? Can I build a message around this notion of the inciting thing that brought these clients specifically to me? Now, all of a sudden, you're no longer, you know, dropping a fishing line over the side of a canoe in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and calling yourself a fisherman. You're getting in a specific fishing boat and you're going a specific time of year to a specific spot in the ocean where you just happen to know tuna hang out, and you're fishing for tuna now. So you're not just a fisherman, you're a tuna fisherman. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So Nathan's right. You absolutely need to talk to your customer. All right, so you guys got me on a little bit of a soapbox there with that comment, Nathan. I very much appreciate that. There's still time. If you are an IT business owner, you work with revenue in your IT services business in any way, sales, business development, customer success, what have you. Let me know what worked for you in 2025. Let me know what big challenges you had, and let's discuss them. Is there anybody out there who tried hiring business development reps in 2025? Did it work? Is there anybody out there who tried a pay-per-click campaign this year? Did it work? Marketing automation, perhaps cold email, perhaps LinkedIn automation. Did anyone go to events this year? So let me know in the comments. And if anyone's feeling brave, they can use the StreamYard link at the top of the chat on LinkedIn and we'll pull you up. We'll go for about another 10 minutes or so here. All right. So observations continued from Scofie. So number one, you don't know who your customer is. Number two, even if you know who your customer is, you don't know how to build a data set of prospects. The third reason I see MSP struggling, let's assume you do have a list and you do have your customer defined. Now you need a compelling offer. Okay. And let's just pull the 800-pound gorilla out of the corner of the room and call a spade a spade. You do not sell pizzas. You do not sell shoes. You do not sell a SaaS product that I can add to cart and check out. So to come at your ideal customer and say, we do IT is too generic. Even to say we do IT for law firms is too generic. It's not a valuable offering. Okay. So what's an example of a valuable offering? I'm going to tell you a story about a time I worked in the call center. And it was a challenging job. I worked for a company that represented things like apartments.com, rent.com, et cetera, et cetera. If you've ever had to research multifamily housing on the internet and you wanted to call a specific property to ask them questions about their availability or their pet policy or whatever, very likely the number on that website did not go to the property directly. It went to some kid like me sitting in a call center. And so let's just say, let's come up with a fictional property. The suites at Avalon, All right. We'll say it's some weird name like that, right? And you go to the suites at Avalon at rent.com and you call the number, and my phone rings in the call center. And as soon as it rings, a little info sheet pops up on my screen, and it's the suites at Avalon. And there I can see the availability. So the floor plans, the availability, the vacancy. I can see the rent ranges. I do not see the actual rent prices. And then there's a little section on that sheet with features. Okay. And there's usually maybe 25 to 40 features. Those could include things like granite countertops, hardwood floors, vaulted ceilings, pet friendly, dog park, golf course, park like setting, uh, parking, right? Those are all features. In my training for this job, I was required, contractually required, for every caller to at least mention no less than 3 features on the call that the property management wanted us to highlight. At least 3 of them. But not only was I required to highlight the feature, I was required to give a corresponding benefit to the feature. You understand? So I couldn't just say that we had vaulted ceilings. I had to say we have vaulted ceilings so that you never feel cramped in your home, that you have all the space you need to raise your family and to work remotely or whatever it was. So you'd ask some questions of the caller and try and figure out who they were and why they were looking, and then it didn't matter if they called in and said, "I just need to know if you have it available and when I can come out on site." They didn't necessarily always want to hear the features. They didn't necessarily want to hear you articulate the benefits, but we were required to. So, you could do a little exercise and see how well you do. It's like, all right, stainless steel appliances, that's a feature. What's the benefit of stainless steel appliances? Granite countertops, that's the feature. What's the benefit of granite countertops? All right, so how does this tie into a valuable offer? To say that you do IT for law firms is just like saying, we have granite countertops. Who cares? Lots of people do. What's the benefit to me that you do IT for law firms, right? And you're not going to be able to build a message around that feature, the thing you do. You're not going to be able to articulate a uniquely compelling benefit without a deep understanding of the status quo your customer finds themselves in. You know what I'm saying? So, law firms, for example, what are the status quo that the majority of law firms that you're connected to or that can you imagine what are some major things related to IT or cybersecurity or compliance or AI that are highly relevant to them? And I'm not saying what should be relevant to them. I'm not saying what should be important to them, because it's probably all relevant in some way. But what's the stuff they actually care about? Right? Probably things like billable hours, probably things like their reputation in the communities they operate in the markets they operate in, probably things like their ability to complete projects on time and to protect data and customer information and to be able to operate at a high level of efficiency so that they're more profitable, right? I'm just pulling those out of a hat, but I would imagine those things are typically very important to a law office, right? That might be uniquely different from a nonprofit that you're targeting, et cetera, et cetera. And anyways, so those are some observations that I have for you guys. Things that I've seen this year, MSPs and IT business owners in 2026. If you are setting yourself up for success, what I believe that looks like, first of all, is getting a laser focus with pinpoint accuracy on who is your customer. Number one. Number two, identifying target accounts that you are going to engage with in 2026, prospect accounts, right? Building quality data sets that you can start building campaigns around. And don't be confused when I say campaigns, there's a lot of iterations of what that could look like tangibly. But first, pinpoint accuracy on who. Number two, building data sets that meet that profile. Number three, crafting a compelling offer that is compelling not to you, but from the vantage point of your customer. And then everything else is blood, sweat, and tears applied faithfully over time to a proven process, right? So your teams need to start building dedicated time into their calendar every day, every week for business development and treating that time as sacred. Robert Gillette, who, we're a little sad because he's not going to be here for the next couple of months on the MSP water cooler. But he will famously always say, do something always. So once you figure out who, and now you've identified target accounts, you have your compelling offer that your customer cares about. Now you're going to be ready to bleed, sweat, and cry consistently over the months and weeks of 2026, seeking to earn mental real estate with your prospects, getting in front of them. Do you get the opportunity to get up on stage? Do you get the opportunity to meet them at a networking event, to get into their voicemail inbox, their LinkedIn inbox, their social media accounts, everywhere they are? Where thy prospect is, there thou shalt also be. It's not any one of these things, guys. It's not just a cold email campaign. It's not just a phone call. It's not just speaking at an event. It's the sum total of all of the touches that you deploy to earn mental real estate. So as we wrap up, we didn't get any questions today, and that's all right. I know Christmas is next week, and this one's a little weird because we don't have our special guest or our co-host. But if you're watching this later, I still covet you to respond. I want to cheer you on if you hit your goals this year. I want to encourage you, make you feel good about what you're looking forward to in 2026. And if all of this is Greek to you, but it's interesting and you'd like to get time with me, on my LinkedIn profile is my calendar link. And feel free to use that to get 30 minutes together. And I can ask you a couple of questions about what you're looking ahead to and give you some recommendations. That's not something that I would charge you for. I just want to help you out. And I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We will not be meeting as the MSP Water Cooler again until 2026. So stay tuned. I appreciate y'all hanging out with us today, and we'll catch you on the next one.